So you clicked on this video because you want to learn more about hiking. Whether it's you just moved somewhere and it's going to be a new hobby of yours, or you want to go on that solo day hike for forever, but you just haven't felt confident about getting on trail by yourself, or how you should plan. Today we're going to talk about how you plan for a hike, how you prepare, and some misconceptions around hiking, because there's a lot. A lot of people take things out of context, and I think we should clear that up here today, and just some best practices that people know as a standard on trail. Let's talk tips. Wildlife. Now, this is an important tip because it's going to differ from location to location. You can always check the wildlife in your area with the Bureau of Land Management on their website, and you can understand what's going to be in that area, and you can learn more about it there. But you need to understand that these things are wild animals. I have seen everything from bear to moose to coyotes and mountain lions on trail. And just knowing how to respect their space and give them what they deserve, as far as you're in their habitat, you're in their backyard. So remember that. And don't approach wildlife. That's all you need to take from this tip. I know sometimes a fox or a deer or even an elk can look cute and approachable, but I promise you they're not. And that's how people almost always get in bad situations. I see people online getting flipped over by bison, and I just wonder, like, what made you think that this thing was going to enjoy you being in its space, right? At the end of the day, they can turn on you really fast. They're driven by instinct. So just respect their space and you'll be fine in terms of wildlife. Okay, weather. So this is probably the most underrated thing, surprisingly. And I know it sounds obvious, but even myself, I've been guilty of this. I went out to the Rocky Mountains, I didn't know what was happening, and I got snowed on. Didn't have the right gear, and it wasn't the best time it could have been. And this can ultimately deter people from ever wanting to hike again. So if you want to have a good time, just be sure you plan ahead and check the weather of where you're going. Mountainforecast.com is a really good website where you can actually just check on any local mountain and get a very detailed forecast of what the elements are going to look like for your hike. Let's talk food, because everyone's probably wondering, how much should I eat? What should I bring on a day hike? What should I bring on a backpacking trip? Well, there's a really simple rule of thumb here. It's about 100 calories for every mile walked. So I know if I'm planning on doing 20 miles total, I should probably plan on bringing 2,000 calories at a minimum. And some of the foods that are going to serve you better on trail are lighter weight and more calorically dense. All right, water. So water is extremely important. This can be the thing that people really don't plan for the most, and it can end up being the worst situation you can be in. You should plan on drinking at least 1 liter of water for every 5 miles hiked. Now, some people might say more, but that is going to get you by just fine. You'll stay hydrated, and you really want to avoid bonking, which is something where you're on a hike, and maybe if you're not familiar with hiking or you don't do it a lot, when you're not hydrated and you're not fed, your body simply can't sustain that type of activity, especially if it doesn't do it a lot. So to avoid bonking, which is essentially just crashing really hard, be sure that you have some sort of like salty snack on you, which is your food. I would hope you bring food. And then make sure that you're drinking at least 1 liter every 5 miles you hike. I recommend using a Camelback. It is extremely convenient, especially for day hikes. I can carry up to 3 liters of water in my Camelback. And not only that, but I actually have a Peak Design clip for my camera, so I can just pop my camera in and out for all you photographers out there, or people who want to do some videography on trail. It makes for just a really convenient pack, and you can fit surprisingly a lot of things in your Camelback. Terrain. Knowing your terrain is extremely important because it is going to dictate how you plan the entire hike from start to finish. If I am going to Joshua Tree or the Mojave Desert, I am definitely going to pack and plan for more water, because yes, that rule of thumb of 1 liter per 5 miles is your standard, but in a desert like that, I've been in Death Valley where it was 130 degrees. You cannot plan for something like that unless you know what the conditions are going to look like and what your terrain looks like specifically. You can apply these blanket rules and that's fine, but always get a little bit more granular and just have a little bit more situational awareness of where you're going to be. If you're going to be in the mountains, you can plan on probably not having to drink as much water, but at the same time, be aware of weather, because the weather in the mountains can change drastically in an instant. And once again, mountain forecast is how you can prevent that, or at least know that that's coming. But it's all going to revolve around your terrain. And that's where most of your planning is going to start. So never discount the terrain and just treat all hikes like they're one standard the same. Navigation. Now, everyone that wants to hike usually is deterred by this. They go, hey, I want to go into the woods and I want to go hike by myself or with a group, but how do we know where we're going to go? And that's a really good question. There's a few different resources that you can use. I personally love All Trails. You can use All Trails and you can know the terrain, what type of reviews people say online, what the route looks like. You can even see a topography map of what the actual trail will be like from start to finish, everything. So it's a great resource and you won't have to worry about getting lost. I know for me personally, if I didn't have All Trails, there would have been times where I was in pretty bad situations. And that's because when you're hiking, sometimes if you're just playing it by ear, the trail can fork off into a lot of different directions and you're kind of just wondering, okay, what happened? Where was I? Where did I come from? And you can get turned around really fast. So always carry a paper map backup, because your phone isn't guaranteed, right? If I break my screen or I lose my battery, then I'm done. Always carry a backup battery just in case. But if that piece of technology goes out, be confident in your ability to navigate the trail and at least have a paper map on hand. Always tell your location to someone. This doesn't seem like it's that important when you get carried up in the excitement of going on a hike and you just go and do your thing, which I'm guilty of as well. But definitely let someone know where you're going, especially if you're planning on doing it overnight. This is a must. If you're on a day hike, it's still recommended because for whatever reason, if you get injured or lost on trail, you could stay put and someone would know, hey, they were supposed to be back by this time. I'm going to alert the authorities and start a search party. I think I saw a stat that was like the average person lost on trail never actually even got more than 7 miles away from the trailhead. So your best bet is to just tell someone your plan beforehand. If you happen to get lost for whatever reason, just stay put and you will be more than likely just fine when the authorities come to look for you, because they'll know exactly where to go and exactly where you should be. Gear. This one is important. I know I saved it for last because gear is really how you hike and have a good time. Now, on your first hike, you might be tempted to wear tennis shoes or cotton socks, and you can do that, and I have done that when I first started day hiking, but it's gonna lead to blisters and just a lot of discomfort, and then it's gonna deter you from wanting to hike again. So look into either some trail runners. I personally love the Lone Peak 5s, but look into some trail runners or even boots. If you're a person that really values that ankle support and maybe something a little bit more sturdy, then you might want to look into a boot. However, boots will cause blisters and they're kind of overkill unless you're a hunter or you're carrying a massive pack. I really just don't see the point in having boots if you're a day hiker. You also need to understand that with boots, it's going to take a minute for them to break in. So you're gonna have to put a lot of miles on them, whereas trail runners, you're gonna break them in a lot faster and they're gonna give you that tennis shoe feel, but they're meant to take on trail.
Also, on the subject of gear, you probably want to get yourself some athletic shorts that are loose, that don't chafe, and some sort of stretchable, breathable nylon or smart wool, Monero wool shirt, because cotton shirts are going to chafe and they're going to feel terrible. You're going to look like this.
All right, socks. Socks are important too. I was in the military and we used Darn Tough socks. This is where I fell in love. Darn Tough is a company that guarantees their socks for life. You might be wondering, okay, if I want to start hiking, what kind of shape should I be in, or how should I train for a hike? And I think there's a lot of misconceptions here around training for a hike, because while walking and cardio will help you out a lot, I think also strength training is underrated, at least your lower body. I know working upper body doesn't really do anything for hiking, and it's probably not that efficient, but training your lower body with squats and doing things that will just strengthen the quads, hamstrings, and calves are what's going to have the most strain when you're doing crazy climbs and descents on mountains. And you're going to be less susceptible to injury, because medically it's been proven that when you strength train properly, you're going to put yourself at less risk for injury on trail. Misconception number 1, you have to be in peak physical condition to enjoy hiking. That's just not true. You can go out there and have fun, and I've done 8 miles and 10 miles when I wasn't in shape at all. And I was sore and it wasn't easy, but it's not impossible. So if you're wanting to get out there and do a 3-mile or a 5-mile hike and just have fun and take it at your own pace, then go do that. Everyone hikes in their own way and at their own limit. Misconception number 2, I'm going to be attacked by a dangerous creature like a bear or a mountain lion if I go hiking by myself. This is just not true. First of all, you're probably making enough noise to scare off that creature before you even get a chance to know that they're around you. And secondly, here's some stats to make you feel better that made me at ease when I was sleeping in the backcountry by myself overnight. You have about a 1 in 2 million chance of being attacked by a bear, and you have a 1 in about 32 million chance being attacked by a mountain lion. Now, these numbers were based on certain sample sizes of places like Northern California. For example, there was only 2 deaths in the last 13 years from mountain lions, and there's a lot of people that are in that backcountry. So just know that really your chances of this are so slim. I think you actually statistically have a higher chance of being killed by a bee, but you don't see people, not living their daily lives outside because bees exist. So don't let these minuscule, really non-existent threats keep you from enjoying the outdoors and going out there solo and worrying in the back of your mind that a creature's watching you, because they're not. They're actually trying to avoid you at all costs. Misconception 3, gear. You don't have to have the latest and greatest gear. You just have to simply have the gear that will work for the situation that you're in. Now granted, when you're first starting to hike, just get out there and do it, and don't worry about investing hundreds or thousands of dollars into hiking gear. Just see if you enjoy it, and the more you find yourself enjoying hiking, the more you can invest in it. It all started for me with tennis shoes and cotton socks and 5-mile, 8-mile day hikes, and now I love backpacking for a few nights at a time, and eventually I hope to be on bigger trails where I might be gone for a month or multiple months. So it just kind of evolves over time, and your passion will either be there for it, or maybe you just really want to keep it as a hobby. And if you do, that's great, because you won't even have to spend that much money on gear. So don't let yourself be tricked into thinking that I need always the latest and greatest hiking gear, or I won't be a true hiker. Misconception number 4, that you have to be scared of hiking, or you have to treat it like it's this extremely dangerous hobby or activity and it's for daredevils. That's just not true. Hiking's for everyone. You can go on super forgiving trails that are less than 3 miles, 3 to 5 miles in and out. You can't get lost. There's one trailhead, and you probably could avoid not eating something the whole trail or drinking water and be fine. You shouldn't do that, but I'm just saying that hiking's more forgiving than people account for, and normally the people that end up in bad situations, they bit off more than they could chew, and they didn't use any of the tips that we talked about in this video. They don't plan for weather, food, water, etc., and then that snowballs into a really, really bad time. So if you think that hiking's dangerous and you want to prove yourself wrong, go find a small trail and then just work your way up. And I think you'll find that you have a misconception about hiking being a super dangerous activity. All right, to wrap it up, trail etiquette. So really the king, or the golden rule, if you will, of trail etiquette is just leave no trace. It just simply means don't litter in the backcountry, don't throw your trash on the ground, don't leave a plastic bottle behind. It's just disrespectful to people who really enjoy hiking in nature, and it's just not something that you want to be known for, right? You also don't want to be that person on trail that carries a JBL flip and blasts music super loud. People are out there to enjoy nature and some serenity. So if you're going to play music out loud, maybe just when you see a hiker, turn it down. Just be respectful, but ultimately leave no trace. Just leave the trail like the way you found it so people can enjoy that same trail 10 years from now. And this is really what makes the trails great, is because people treat them with respect, and over long periods of time, we can keep them in the best condition as possible. Well, that's really it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it makes you feel more confident in how you're going to plan that first solo hike or get into hiking in general, because I promise you, I've never really met anyone that wasn't satisfied that went on a hike. I've brought friends out into the wilderness that just, I would have never imagined that they would have enjoyed it. And at the end, they just talk about how rewarding it was and how peaceful it is and how it can take you away from just all the mental craziness that goes on in our lives 24/7. Hiking is extremely therapeutic, and it's a workout at the same time. So if you've never done it or you want to get into it, please give it a shot and take some of the tips from this video and apply them. But until the next one, guys, happy trails.